I was standing in the middle of my daughter's wedding reception, surrounded by 200 guests, when my new son-in-law demanded I hand over the keys to my farm, right there, in front of everyone. I refused. I was confused, humiliated. Brandon stepped closer and slapped me so hard across the face that I lost my balance and stumbled backward into a table. The room went silent. Blood trickled from my split lip. I straightened up, walked out, and pulled out my phone. I made one call. When Brandon saw who I was calling, he went absolutely hysterical. I sat in my truck in the parking lot, holding a napkin full of ice against my swelling face. My hands were shaking. Not from the pain, though my jaw throbbed like hell. I was shaking because I couldn't understand what had just happened. My own daughter's wedding. My own son-in-law. The keys to my farm. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. My name is Damien. I'm 63 years old, and I've spent my entire life on a 200-acre farm in rural Kansas. It's been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built the original homestead back in 1947 with his own 2 hands. When I was a boy, he'd walk me through the fields and tell me stories about breaking the land, about the drought years, about the day he finally paid off the mortgage. He made me promise I'd never let it go. I kept that promise. Through everything. 15 years ago, my wife Catherine died of cancer. Emma was only 13. It was just the 2 of us after that. I raised her alone, worked the farm alone, tried to be both parents. Maybe I wasn't perfect at it. God knows I made mistakes. But I loved that girl. With everything I had. She was my whole world. Emma grew up on that farm. She learned to drive on the tractor paths. She helped me feed the cattle every morning before school. On summer evenings, we'd sit on the porch and watch the sun set over the wheat fields. When she graduated high school, I cried like a baby. When she went off to college in Wichita, the house felt emptier than it ever had, even after Catherine died. But Emma came home on weekends. She helped with the books, managed some of the accounts when harvest season got busy. She was good with numbers, better than me. I added her as a co-signer on one of the farm accounts, so she could handle things when I was out in the fields. It made sense at the time. She graduated 4 years ago with a business degree. Got a job at a marketing firm in Kansas City. We didn't see each other as much after that, but we talked on the phone every week. She seemed happy, successful. Then, 6 months ago, she brought Brandon home. He was 32, tall, good-looking, wore expensive suits even on the weekend. Said he was a real estate developer from the city. He shook my hand firmly, smiled with too many teeth, and told me he'd heard so much about the farm. He seemed charming enough, I suppose. Emma was glowing. She looked at him the way her mother used to look at me. Brandon took an immediate interest in the property. He walked the land with me, asked detailed questions about the acreage, the water rights, the soil quality. He took pictures with his phone, made notes on a little leather pad. I thought he was just being polite, showing interest in his girlfriend's family history. But Emma started changing. She became distant. When I'd call, she'd cut conversations short. When she visited, she seemed distracted. She and Brandon would whisper to each other, fall silent when I entered the room. I told myself I was being paranoid. She was in love. People in love act different. 3 months ago, Brandon proposed. Emma called me crying, so happy she could barely speak. They wanted to get married quickly, she said. They'd found the perfect venue. Could they have the wedding in 3 months? I thought it was rushed, but I didn't want to be the father who ruined his daughter's happiness. I said yes. The planning happened fast. Too fast. Emma and Brandon handled most of it. The venue, the caterers, the guest list. I just wrote the checks. $40,000 for a wedding. I didn't complain. She was my only child. I wanted her to have everything. 2 weeks before the wedding, Brandon stopped by the farm alone. Said he wanted to talk man to man. We sat on the porch with beers. He started asking about my plans for the future. What would happen to the farm when I was gone? Had I thought about estate planning? He said these things casually, like he was just making conversation, but there was something in his eyes, something calculating. I told him the farm would go to Emma eventually, of course, but I planned on working it for another 20 years at least. I was only 63. My father worked until he was 82. Brandon smiled and nodded, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Now, sitting in my truck, my face throbbing, I understood. This had been planned. All of it. My phone rang. It was Harold, my lawyer. We'd been friends since high school. He lived 20 minutes away. Damien, what the hell is going on? Are you all right? Just get here, Harold. I need you. I'm already in my car. Don't do anything. Don't sign anything. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I hung up and stared at the reception hall. Through the windows I could see people moving around, agitated. Someone was probably looking for me. I didn't care. I was about to start the truck and drive away when someone knocked on my window. Emma. Her wedding dress was bunched up in her hands, her makeup streaked with tears. I rolled down the window. Dad, please. Please come back inside. We can fix this. Fix this? Emma. He hit me. In front of everyone. I know. He shouldn't have done that. He's sorry. He's just stressed. We can talk about this like adults. Talk about what? Why does he want the keys to my farm? She looked away. Wouldn't meet my eyes. Emma, look at me. She did, finally. There was something in her expression I'd never seen before. Something cold. Dad, we need to talk. Come inside. Please. Against my better judgment, I got out of the truck. My lip had stopped bleeding, but I could feel it swelling. We walked back toward the hall, but Emma grabbed my arm and pulled me toward a side door, into a small room that looked like an office. Brandon was waiting there. So was another man I didn't recognize. Older, expensive suit, briefcase. Mr. Peterson, the stranger said, extending his hand. I didn't take it. My name is Roger Lindholm. I'm Mr. Calloway's attorney. Brandon brought his lawyer to his wedding? I looked at my daughter. What the hell is this? Emma opened her purse and pulled out a document. She laid it on the desk. Dad, 3 months ago, at the engagement party, you signed this. I looked at the paper. It was a property transfer agreement. My signature was at the bottom. The date was from the engagement party, but I didn't remember signing anything that night. I'd had a few drinks, sure. I'd been emotional, happy for Emma. But this? I never signed this. Your signature says otherwise, Brandon said. He'd lost the charming smile. Now he just looked smug. I don't care what it says. I didn't sign it. Or if I did, I don't remember it. You must have gotten me drunk and shoved it in front of me. You signed it of your own free will, the lawyer said smoothly. It's a legal document, witnessed and notarized. As of tonight, pending the formal transfer of keys and titles, the property belongs to Mr. Calloway and your daughter. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. This is fraud. It's legal, Brandon said. You signed it, old man. The farm is ours. I looked at Emma. You knew about this. You planned this. She wouldn't look at me. Dad, you're getting older. The farm is too much for you. We can take care of it. You can still live in the house. We're not kicking you out. We just need the land. Need it for what? Brandon stepped forward. There's a new highway extension planned. It's not public knowledge yet, but I have sources. The route goes right past your property. That land is worth millions. We've already got a developer lined up. $4 million, Damien. We close the deal in 60 days. You're going to sell my family's farm. It's business, Brandon said. Nothing personal. You hit me in front of 200 people and you say it's nothing personal? You embarrassed me, he snapped. I asked you nicely for the keys. You refused. You made a scene. I made a scene? You're out of your mind. There was a knock at the door. Harold walked in, took one look at the situation, and immediately went into lawyer mode. Nobody says another word, he said. Damien, let's go. Now. We're not finished here, Brandon's lawyer said. Oh, you're very finished, Harold said. If you contact my client again without going through me, I'll have you disbarred for harassment. Let's go, Damien. I looked at Emma one last time. She was crying again, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. I raised you better than this, I said quietly. Then I walked out. Harold and I sat in his office Monday morning. He'd spent the weekend reviewing the document Emma had showed me. The news wasn't good. It's legitimate, Damien. That's your signature. I had it verified by a handwriting expert. It matches your writing perfectly. Harold, I'm telling you, I don't remember signing this. They must have drugged me, or something. That's a serious accusation. Can you prove it? No. It was 3 months ago. How could I prove it now? Harold leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. He looked as tired as I felt. We can contest it on the grounds of diminished capacity, or fraud. Argue that you were intoxicated, that you didn't understand what you were signing. But Damien, it's going to be an uphill battle. The document is properly notarized. There were witnesses. Who? Who witnessed it? According to this, 2 people. Brandon's business partner, Marcus Holloway, and someone named Jennifer Chen. Do you remember them being at the party? I tried to think back. The engagement party had been at a restaurant in Kansas City. There had been maybe 50 people there, faces blurred together. I don't know. Maybe. I can't remember. We need to find them. Get their testimony. If they'll admit you were impaired or that Brandon coerced you, we might have a case. How much is this going to cost? Harold was quiet for a moment. A case like this? If it goes to full trial, you're looking at $50,000 to $75,000. Maybe more. I felt sick. I had some savings, but not that much. I've got about $80,000 in the bank. I can pay you. Damien, you need to think carefully about this. Even if we win, it could take months. Maybe a year. You'll burn through your savings, and there's no guarantee we'll win. What choice do I have? That farm is everything. It's my grandfather's legacy. I can't just hand it over to that snake. Harold nodded. All right, we fight. But we do this smart. No more confrontations. No contact with Emma or Brandon unless I'm present. Everything goes through me. Understood? Understood. I left Harold's office feeling a little bit hopeful. But that hope didn't last long. By Tuesday afternoon, the whole town knew what had happened. Small towns are like that. News travels faster than wildfire. I stopped at the feed store to pick up some supplies, and the owner, Greg, who'd been my supplier for 30 years, barely looked at me. Greg, I need to put this on my account. I'll settle up end of the month, like always. Actually, Damien, I'm going to need you to pay the full account balance today. I stared at him. What? Why? I've never missed a payment. New policy. Cash only for accounts over 90 days. My account isn't 90 days. I paid you 3 weeks ago, just following the new policy. I looked at him hard. Brandon got to you, didn't he? Greg didn't answer, just crossed his arms and waited. I paid with my debit card and left without another word. Over the next few days, it got worse. 2 of my farmhands quit, said they'd been offered better jobs in the city. I knew Brandon was behind it. He was systematically cutting me off, isolating me. Then the stories started. People in town began treating me differently. At church on Sunday, some folks avoided eye contact. Others gave me pitying looks. Later, I found out why. Brandon had been spreading rumors, telling people I was declining mentally, that I'd been making mistakes on the farm, forgetting things. He showed people doctored text messages that made me look confused, photos of run-down farm equipment that wasn't even mine. My neighbor Frank, who I'd known for 40 years, stopped returning my calls. On Thursday, I got a visit from a county inspector. Said there'd been complaints about unsafe conditions on my property. He spent 2 hours walking around, taking notes, taking pictures. When he left, he handed me a citation. Multiple violations. Rusty equipment, overgrown fencing, improperly stored chemicals. Half of it was exaggerated. The other half was outright lies. But I had 30 days to fix it all or face daily fines of $500. That night, Harold called with more bad news. Damien, Brandon, and Emma filed an injunction. They're claiming you're damaging the property value and demanding immediate transfer pending the court decision. There's a hearing in 2 weeks. Can they do that? They can try. We'll fight it. But you need to be prepared. They're going to argue that you're not competent to manage the property. That's insane. I know. But they're building a case. The cattle incident today didn't help. What cattle incident? There was a pause. You don't know? Know what? Damien. 40 head of your cattle got out this afternoon. They got onto Highway 56. One of them caused an accident. 2 people were injured. I felt my blood run cold. That's impossible. I checked all the gates this morning. They were locked. The sheriff is saying you must have left one open. They're questioning whether you're fit to manage livestock. I grabbed my keys and drove out to the pasture. Sure enough, the main gate was standing wide open. But I absolutely knew, I'd locked it that morning. I always locked it. Always. I drove back to the house and checked the security camera footage. I had an old system set up, mostly to watch for coyotes. The footage was grainy, black and white, but at 3 a.m, I could see a figure approaching the gate. They were wearing dark clothing, a hood pulled up. The angle wasn't good enough to see their face. They opened the gate, propped it with a rock so it wouldn't swing shut, and walked away. I called Harold immediately. Can we use this? He came over and watched the footage. Then he shook his head. It's too unclear. We can't identify who it is. Brandon's lawyers will say it could be anyone. Could even be you, if we're being honest. The angle is terrible, but it proves someone opened that gate deliberately. It proves someone opened a gate. That's all. I'm sorry, Damien. It's not enough. The next day, Brandon's lawyers filed an emergency motion for immediate property transfer. They cited the cattle incident as evidence that I was a danger to the community. I was losing. And I could feel the walls closing in. The local newspaper ran the story on Friday. Family farm dispute turns ugly. The article painted me as an unstable old man clinging to property I couldn't manage. They interviewed Emma, who cried on camera and said she loved me but worried about my judgment. She claimed I'd been having memory problems, that I'd nearly caused a tractor accident a month ago, that I'd refused to see a doctor. None of it was true, but people believed it. By the weekend, my phone had stopped ringing. Friends weren't calling to check on me. Even the people at church kept their distance. I sat alone in the back pew on Sunday, and when the service ended, I was the first one out the door. My 2 remaining farmhands quit on Monday. Brandon had offered them jobs with his development company at twice what I was paying. I couldn't blame them. They had families to feed. I was alone on 200 acres. Just me and the cattle and the wind. Harold tried to keep my spirits up, but even he was worried. The emergency hearing was in 3 days, and we both knew how it would look. An isolated old man, incidents piling up, his own daughter saying he wasn't competent. We need something, Harold said over the phone. Some proof of Brandon's manipulation. Anything. But I had nothing. Just my word against theirs. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch with a bottle of whiskey and my grandfather's old rifle across my lap. Not because I planned to use it, just because it made me feel less alone. That rifle had been in the family since the war. My grandfather had carried it through France. My father had used it to hunt deer. I'd taught Emma to shoot with it when she was 12. Now Emma was trying to take everything. I must have dozed off, because I woke up to headlights coming down the drive. It was nearly midnight. I stood up, gripping the rifle. A black SUV pulled up. A man got out. He was wearing an expensive suit despite the late hour. Mid-40s, slicked back hair, cold eyes. Mr. Peterson. My name is Marcus Holloway. I'm Brandon's business partner. Marcus. The witness on the property transfer document. Get off my property. He held up his hands. I come in peace. I just want to talk. I've got nothing to say to you. I think you do. Can we talk inside? Just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let him in. We sat at the kitchen table. He looked around, taking in the old photographs on the walls, the worn linoleum, the ancient refrigerator. Nice place. Real piece of history. What do you want? He pulled an envelope from his jacket. I want to make you an offer. $200,000, cash. You sign over the property quietly, no more court battles, no more drama. You can take the money and buy a nice condo in Florida. Enjoy your retirement. I don't want your money. I want my farm. Mr. Peterson, please be reasonable. You're going to lose in court. Brandon has an airtight case. The signed document, your daughter's testimony, the incidents on the property. The judge is going to rule against you. Why drag this out? Take the money. Walk away with your dignity. $200,000, I said. The property is worth $4 million, and you know it. He smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. The property is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. And right now, I'm the only one offering. Get out. His smile faded. Mr. Peterson, I'm trying to help you. Things could get worse. Much worse. Is that a threat? He stood up and dropped a manila folder on the table. Just stating facts. After he left, I opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Pictures of me. At the farm. In town. At the grocery store. In my truck. They'd been following me. Watching me. There was a note on the bottom in typed letters. Accidents happen on farms. Old men fall, get hurt. Sometimes they can't call for help. I called Harold immediately. He came over, looked at the photos, and his face went pale. This is witness intimidation. We can report this. To who? The sheriff? He already thinks I'm losing my mind. Brandon probably has half the town convinced I'm paranoid. Harold sat down heavily. What do you want to do? I don't know. But I'm not giving up. Not yet. 2 nights later, my barn caught fire. I woke up to the smell of smoke. By the time I got outside, the whole west side was engulfed in flames. I called 911 and ran for the hose, but it was useless. The fire was too big. The volunteer fire department got there within 20 minutes and managed to save most of the structure, but the damage was extensive, probably $30,000 worth. The fire marshal investigated the next morning. He found evidence of accelerant. Someone had deliberately set the fire. But then he interviewed my neighbors. One of them, a man I barely knew who'd just moved in 6 months ago, said he'd seen me near the barn earlier that evening. Said I'd been carrying a gas can. The sheriff came to talk to me. Asked me point blank if I'd set my own barn on fire. You think I burned down my own barn? Some people do, Mr. Peterson. Insurance fraud. Or maybe you're not thinking clearly these days. Maybe you don't remember doing it. I didn't do it. Brandon Calloway did it. Or he had someone do it. He's trying to destroy me. The sheriff gave me that look. That pitying, concerned look that people give to crazy people. Mr. Peterson, you're under a lot of stress. Maybe you should talk to someone. A professional. I'm not crazy. Nobody said you were. But making accusations without evidence isn't going to help your case. Now, I'm not going to arrest you. Not yet. But the fire marshal's report is going to say arson, and there's a witness who puts you at the scene. If your insurance company investigates and finds you were involved, you could face charges. After he left, I sat in my kitchen and put my head in my hands. They'd backed me into a corner. Every move I made, they were 3 steps ahead. Every time I tried to defend myself, they made me look worse. I was losing everything. My farm, my reputation, my sanity, and I had no idea how to stop it. Harold called Tuesday morning with the worst news yet. The psychiatric evaluation. The judge ordered it. You have to undergo a court-mandated evaluation within 5 days. The evaluator will submit a report, and that report will weigh heavily in the judge's decision about the property transfer. They're trying to have me declared incompetent. That's exactly what they're trying to do. And Damien, you need to take this seriously. The evaluator is going to ask you questions designed to assess your mental state. They're going to ask about the incidents, the fire, the cattle. You need to stay calm. Don't sound paranoid. Don't make accusations you can't prove. So I'm supposed to just pretend Brandon isn't destroying my life? You're supposed to be factual and calm. If you go in there ranting about conspiracies, they will declare you incompetent. Do you understand? I understood. I just didn't like it. The evaluation was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. The psychiatrist was Dr. Helen Wagner, a woman in her 50s with a stern face and cold eyes. Her office was in Wichita, an hour's drive from the farm. She asked me to sit down and started with basic questions. My name, my age, what year it was. Did I know why I was there? Then the questions got harder. Mr. Peterson, can you tell me about the incidents on your farm? The cattle escaping, the fire. I told her what happened. I tried to stay calm, to stick to the facts. But when I explained about the security footage, about Marcus's visit, about the photographs, I could see the skepticism in her eyes. So you believe Mr. Calloway is orchestrating these events to make you appear incompetent? I don't believe it. I know it. But you don't have proof. The security footage, which doesn't clearly show anyone identifiable. Mr. Peterson, do you think it's possible that you're experiencing some paranoia due to stress? I'm not paranoid. This is really happening. I'm sure it feels very real to you. Stress can do strange things to our perception. Have you been sleeping well? No. Because someone burned down my barn. Have you considered that you might have been sleepwalking? That you might have started the fire without remembering it? That's insane. Is it? You said yourself you don't remember signing the property transfer document. Perhaps you did it while impaired. Perhaps your memory isn't as reliable as you think. The evaluation went on for 2 hours. Every answer I gave, she twisted. Made me sound delusional. Paranoid. By the end, I felt like I was losing my mind for real. I left her office knowing exactly what her report would say. Friday afternoon, I got another blow. I was going through my mail when I found a notice from the county. My property taxes were overdue. I always paid my taxes on time. Always. But according to this notice, the payment had bounced. There were penalties, late fees. I now owed $16,000 immediately, or the county would file a tax lien. I called the county office. They confirmed it. The payment method on file had been changed 3 months ago. The new account information had bounced the payment. Who changed the payment method? According to our records, Emma Peterson. She's listed as an authorized party on the account. Emma. Of course. I checked my bank accounts. My main savings account showed a balance of $6,000. But I'd had $80,000 in there last month. I called the bank. The manager, Patricia, looked uncomfortable when I walked in. Damien, I'm so sorry. I tried to call you. Where's my money? Emma withdrew it. She's a co-signer on the account. She withdrew $78,000 3 days before the wedding. It was all legal. I couldn't stop it. I sat down in her office, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. They'd taken everything. My money, my reputation, my daughter. Can I get it back? Patricia shook her head. Not unless she voluntarily returns it, or a court orders it. But legally, as a co-signer, she had every right to withdraw the funds. I left the bank and sat in my truck in the parking lot. I had $6,000 to my name. I owed $16,000 in property taxes. Harold's retainer for the court case was $15,000. I couldn't afford to fight, even if I wanted to. They'd won. And they'd done it perfectly. That night, Harold came to the farm. He'd gotten a copy of Dr. Wagner's report. It was worse than I'd expected. She's recommending guardianship, Damien. She says you show signs of paranoid ideation, impaired judgment, and possible early dementia. She thinks you're a danger to yourself and others. That's not true. I know. But this is what the judge is going to see. The hearing is Monday. Brandon and Emma are going to petition for immediate transfer of property and for Emma to be appointed your legal guardian. My guardian. My own daughter. I'm sorry. I don't know how to fight this. We don't have the money for a full trial. We don't have evidence to counter their claims. Without something new, something substantial, we're going to lose. I thanked Harold and sent him home. Then I sat alone in the house where I'd raised my daughter. The house my grandfather had built. The house where my wife had died. I was going to lose it all. I went to Catherine's old sewing room, the one place I'd barely touched since she died. Her things were still there. Her thread, her patterns, her old Singer sewing machine, and her journals. Catherine had kept journals her whole adult life. I started reading, looking for comfort, looking for something, and I found it. Entries from 15 years ago, when Emma was 13. Catherine had written about concerns she had, about Emma's behavior, how she'd caught Emma stealing money from Catherine's purse, how Emma had forged Catherine's signature on a school note, how Emma lied, so easily, so convincingly. Catherine had wanted to get Emma into therapy. She thought Emma might have antisocial traits, but I'd dismissed it. Told Catherine it was just teenage rebellion. I kept reading, entry after entry, Catherine documenting Emma's manipulations, her lies, her complete lack of empathy when she was caught. I'd been blind. I'd wanted to see my daughter as perfect, as innocent. I'd ignored every warning sign, and now I was paying the price. I was about to close the journal when there was a knock at my door. It was late, nearly midnight. I grabbed my grandfather's rifle and went to the door cautiously. A woman stood on my porch. 30-ish, dark hair, nervous eyes. "Mr. Peterson? My name is Jessica Harding. I need to talk to you about Brandon Calloway." I let Jessica inside. She sat at my kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee I'd made. She looked exhausted. "How did you find me?" I asked. "I've been following the news coverage. When I saw the story about the wedding, about what Brandon did to you, I recognized the pattern. It's what he did to my father." "Your father?" 4 years ago. In Colorado. My father owned a restaurant property in Denver. Prime location, worth about $3 million. Brandon was dating me at the time. We'd been together for a year. He seemed perfect, charming, successful. "Let me guess. He got close to your father." She nodded. "He convinced my father to sign over partial ownership. Said he wanted to invest in the business, expand it. My father trusted him because he trusted me. Within 6 months, Brandon had systematically destroyed my father's reputation, spread rumors that he was senile, staged incidents to make him look incompetent, got him declared mentally unfit, took the property." "What happened to your father?" Her eyes filled with tears. "He had a heart attack 6 months later. The stress killed him. He died thinking he'd lost everything, that he'd failed our family. I'm sorry. I've been trying to build a case against Brandon for 3 years. But he's careful. He covers his tracks. He uses different methods each time, so there's no clear pattern. But I've found 2 other victims besides my father. Elderly property owners. Vulnerable people. Brandon identifies them, uses family members to get close, then destroys and takes." She pulled out a folder and spread documents across my table. Property records, court documents, newspaper articles. 3 different cases, 3 different states, all the same pattern. Why hasn't he been stopped? Because the victims are too scared or too broken to testify. Because he makes it look legal. Because he's smart. She paused. But he's also getting bolder, more brazen. And that's where he's going to make mistakes. She pulled out her phone and showed me a name. FBI Special Agent Carla Rodriguez. Agent Rodriguez has been building a case against Brandon for 18 months. Wire fraud, elder abuse. But it's slow. The FBI needs more evidence. More victims willing to come forward. I've been working with her, providing what information I can. Can she help me? Can she stop what's happening? Jessica's expression was sympathetic, but realistic. The investigation could take months. She can't stop your court hearing on Monday. But if you're willing to testify, if you're willing to help build the case, we might be able to stop Brandon from doing this to anyone else. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was something. "There's something else you should know," Jessica said. "Brandon's business partner, Marcus Holloway. He has connections to organized crime. The threats he made to you, they weren't empty. You're in real danger, Mr. Peterson. Then what am I supposed to do? Come with me. To Colorado. Stay with me until the hearing. Get somewhere safe. I can't leave my farm. It's all I have left." Jessica understood. She gave me Agent Rodriguez's phone number and told me to call her in the morning. Then she left, and I was alone again. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely hopeless. There was a pattern. Evidence. Other victims. Maybe I couldn't save my farm, but maybe I could help stop Brandon from destroying anyone else. I called Agent Rodriguez at 8 a.m. She answered on the second ring. "Mr. Peterson. Jessica said you might call. I've been following your case." We talked for an hour. She confirmed everything Jessica had told me. Brandon was under investigation, but the case was complex. Financial crimes always were. She needed more evidence, more testimony. "Can you help me?" "Not in the way you want. I can't stop your hearing. I can't freeze the property transfer. Not yet. We don't have enough to move forward with charges. But if you're willing to help us build the case, we might be able to get justice eventually." "Eventually doesn't help me now." "I know. I'm sorry. But there is one thing I can suggest. Request a continuance. Buy yourself more time. The longer this drags out, the more chances Brandon has to make mistakes. I thanked her and hung up. Then I called Harold and told him everything. This is good, Damien. This is something we can use. Not to win, necessarily, but to stall, to create doubt. I'll file for a continuance this afternoon, cite new evidence. It might buy us a few weeks. And then what? I don't know. But it's better than losing on Monday. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about Catherine's journals, about Emma as a teenager, about all the warning signs I'd ignored. Around 2 a.m., I heard something outside. A car engine. I looked out the window and saw headlights in my driveway. Someone was sitting out there, watching my house. I grabbed my rifle and my phone, called the sheriff's office. They said they'd send someone out, but it would be 20 minutes. The car sat there for 10 minutes, engine running. Then it drove away slowly. When the deputy arrived, I described the car. He took notes but said there wasn't much he could do. No law against sitting on a public road. But I knew what it was. Another message. Another threat. The next morning, I found something on my porch. A dead cat. Not mine. I didn't have any cats. But someone had left it there, and there was a note pinned to it. Leave now, or join it. I took pictures. Documented everything. Sent it to Agent Rodriguez. She said she'd add it to the file, but warned me again. I was in danger. Real danger. Mr. Peterson, these people don't make idle threats. You need to consider your safety. What about my property? What about justice? Justice takes time. Your life doesn't. Please be careful. I spent the rest of the day working on the farm, trying to keep my mind busy. But every sound made me jump. Every shadow looked like a threat. I was a prisoner on my own land. Harold called that evening with mixed news. The judge had granted a 2-week continuance, but he wasn't happy about it. He wanted this resolved quickly. We had 2 weeks to come up with something substantial, or I was going to lose everything. 2 weeks, 14 days. I spent that night reading more of Catherine's journals, looking for anything that might help, any proof of Emma's nature. But all I found were the worried observations of a mother who saw something wrong in her child and couldn't fix it. I'd failed Catherine. I'd failed to see what she saw. And now, I was paying the price. But I wasn't going to fail myself. Not anymore. I called Agent Rodriguez back. What do you need from me? What can I do to help your investigation? Are you willing to wear a wire? To try to get Brandon or Emma to incriminate themselves? Yes. It's dangerous. If they find the wire, if they suspect what you're doing, Marcus Holloway might escalate. I don't care. I'm not going down without a fight. There was a pause. Then Agent Rodriguez said something that changed everything. All right. Let's set it up. Call Emma. Tell her you want to talk. Tell her you're ready to work something out. Let's see if we can get them to confess. Agent Rodriguez couldn't officially sanction the operation. It was too risky, too legally gray. But she had a partner, Agent Tom Brennan, who was willing to help off the books. He met me at a rest stop halfway between Wichita and the farm, gave me a wire, professional grade, nearly invisible once it was taped to my chest under my shirt. This thing records everything. 6-hour battery life. We'll be monitoring from a distance, but we can't intervene unless your life is in immediate danger. You understand? I understand. If things go bad, you say the word harvest. That's your panic word. We come in immediately. I drove back to the farm and called Emma. She answered on the 3rd ring. Dad? I want to talk. You and Brandon. Tomorrow evening. At the farm. About what? About ending this. I'm tired, Emma. I can't fight anymore. Maybe we can work something out. There was a pause. I could hear her talking to someone in the background. Brandon. Probably. Okay. Tomorrow at 6. Just you, me, and Brandon. No lawyers. No lawyers. I agreed. After I hung up, I called Harold and Jessica and told them the plan. Harold was against it, said it was too dangerous. But Jessica understood. This is how we got him in Colorado. He gets cocky when he thinks he's won. He'll brag. He'll confess. Just get him talking. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about what might happen, about what Brandon might do if he found the wire, about Marcus and his threats. But I also thought about my grandfather, about the promises I'd made, about the legacy I was supposed to protect. If I was going down, I was going down fighting. Emma and Brandon arrived at 6 p.m. sharp. They came in a new Mercedes, black and shiny. Brandon was wearing jeans and an expensive polo shirt. Emma looked nervous. They came inside. I offered them coffee. Brandon declined. Emma accepted but didn't drink it. "So," Brandon said, sitting at my kitchen table like he owned the place. "You wanted to talk. I want to end this. The court battle. The fighting. I'm tired." "Smart man. Took you long enough to see reason. I have conditions." He laughed. "You're in no position to make conditions, old man. Just hear me out. I'll sign over the property. But I want $200,000. Enough to buy a small place somewhere. Start over. We already made you that offer. You refused. I was angry. I wasn't thinking clearly. I'm thinking clearly now." Brandon leaned back and smiled. That same cold smile. "I don't think I'll offer 200 anymore. I think I'll offer 50. Take it or leave it." "Brandon," Emma said quietly, "don't be cruel." "Cruel? Your father has cost us weeks of time and thousands in legal fees. 50,000 is generous." I looked at Emma. "Is this what you want? To watch him humiliate me?" She looked away. "Dad, just take the offer. Please. Let's end this." "Why, Emma? Why did you do this? I gave you everything. You gave me a childhood on a dying farm in the middle of nowhere. You gave me a mother who died because we couldn't afford better health care. You gave me nothing. That's not fair. We did everything we could for your mother. It wasn't enough. It's never been enough. But now, finally, I can have the life I deserve. The life Brandon can give me." Brandon put his arm around her. "Your daughter understands what you never did, Damien. Land is money. Money is power. You were sitting on millions and living like a pauper. It's pathetic. So you decided to just take it. I decided to help your daughter claim what should have been hers. You're an old man. You've had your life. Now it's her turn. And the highway? The development deal? That was always the plan?" Brandon grinned. "I have a source at the State Transportation Department. Been paying him for insider information for 5 years. When I heard about the highway extension, I started looking at properties along the route. Yours was perfect. Elderly owner, estranged daughter, valuable land, easy target. So you manipulated Emma." "I didn't have to manipulate her much. She was already angry at you, already wanted out. I just gave her a way to get what she wanted." I glanced at Emma. She wasn't looking at me, just staring at her hands. "And the engagement party? You drugged me. Got me to sign that document. Just a little something in your drink. Nothing harmful. You were so emotional that night. So happy for your daughter. You would have signed anything I put in front of you, but the drug made sure you wouldn't remember." He was confessing. All of it. The wire was getting everything. "What about the cattle? The fire?" "Oh, that was Marcus's idea. He's very good at creating chaos, making people look incompetent. The cattle thing was brilliant. One of his guys opened your gate at 3 a.m. Simple. And the fire? Also Marcus. Though I told him to be subtle. Burning down a barn was a bit much. But it worked, didn't it? Everyone in town thinks you're losing your mind." Emma finally spoke up. "Brandon, maybe we should go. He's agreed to sign. We can finish this with the lawyers." No. I want him to understand. I want him to know how completely he's been beaten." Brandon leaned forward. "Your daughter thinks you're pathetic, Damien. Your friends think you're crazy. Your reputation is destroyed. You have no money, no allies, no hope. You've lost. Completely and totally." I nodded slowly. "You're right. I have lost. But at least I'll know I fought." "Fought? You didn't fight. You rolled over like a dog." That's when the door opened. Marcus walked in. He wasn't invited. He wasn't expected, and he looked angry. "What the hell are you doing?" Marcus said to Brandon. "Why are you here alone? Where's security?" "We don't need security. It's just the old man." Marcus looked at me hard. Then he started patting me down. "Stand up. Now." I stood up. Marcus's hands moved over my chest. He found the wire. He ripped it off. held it up. "You idiot! He's recording you." Brandon's face went white. Emma gasped. Marcus pulled out a gun. A real gun. He pointed it at me. "Who's listening? FBI? Local cops?" "Nobody," I said. "Just me." "You're lying." He grabbed Emma, put the gun to her head. "Tell me the truth, or I kill her." "Marcus, what are you doing?" Brandon was on his feet, panicked. "Put the gun down." "Shut up. This is your fault. You couldn't resist bragging. Now we're all exposed." He looked at me. "Last chance. Who's listening?" "FBI," I said. "They're listening. And they're on their way." Marcus smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Then we don't have much time." He forced all three of us toward the barn. Emma was crying. Brandon was babbling, saying this wasn't the plan, that Marcus was crazy. "New plan," Marcus said. "Murder-suicide. Crazy old farmer couldn't handle losing his land. Shot his daughter and son-in-law, then himself. Clean and simple." He pushed us into the barn. It was dark inside, smelling of smoke from the fire. The damaged walls creaked in the wind. Marcus was positioning us, trying to stage it, when we heard sirens. Multiple sirens. Cars roaring up the driveway. "FBI! Drop your weapon!" Marcus spun around. The barn doors burst open. Agents in tactical gear, weapons drawn. "Drop it now." For a moment, Marcus looked like he might shoot. His finger tightened on the trigger. Emma screamed. Then he lowered the gun and dropped it. Agents swarmed in, cuffed Marcus, secured the scene. Agent Rodriguez appeared, helped Emma to her feet. Another agent checked on me. "Are you all right, Mr. Peterson?" I was shaking. But I was alive. "I'm fine." Brandon was on his knees, hands cuffed behind his back, crying. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't the plan. Agent Rodriguez stood over him. "Brandon Calloway, you're under arrest for wire fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted murder. Marcus Holloway, you're under arrest for attempted murder, kidnapping, witness intimidation, and about a dozen other charges we'll add later." She looked at Emma. "Emma Peterson, you're under arrest as an accomplice to fraud and elder abuse." Emma looked at me. "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know Marcus would do this." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Jessica appeared at my side. "You did it. You got them." Harold was there too. He'd been waiting down the road. "Damien, are you okay?" "I'm okay." Agent Rodriguez came over. "Mr. Peterson, we'll need your full statement. But preliminary, we've got enough to put Brandon away for a long time. The wire recording, combined with Marcus's actions tonight, the other victims willing to testify now, it's a solid case. What about my property?" "The transfer document will be voided. It'll take some time to process, but your property will be restored to you. Brandon won't be able to touch it from prison." I sat down on a hay bale and put my head in my hands. It was over. Finally over. The next few weeks were a blur. Statements to the FBI, interviews with federal prosecutors, paperwork to restore my property rights. The court quickly dismissed all cases against me once Agent Rodriguez presented the evidence. The fraudulent property transfer was voided. My farm was mine again, legally and completely. The truth came out publicly. The local newspaper that had painted me as an unstable old man now ran a front-page story about the elaborate fraud scheme. Brandon Calloway's face was plastered across every news channel in Kansas. The FBI revealed that he'd targeted at least 5 elderly property owners across 4 states. The total value of property he'd fraudulently obtained or attempted to obtain was over $12 million. Marcus Holloway's connections to organized crime made national news. Apparently, he'd been using Brandon's schemes to launder money. The FBI had been tracking him for years, but could never get enough evidence until our case broke it wide open. Dr. Helen Wagner's psychiatric evaluation was thrown out when investigators discovered that Brandon had paid her assistant to plant false information in my file. She hadn't known, but her report was worthless now. She apologized personally, though it didn't undo the damage she'd nearly caused. The money Emma had stolen from my account was recovered and returned to me. My $78,000 plus interest. The county waived the property tax penalties once they understood what had happened. Greg from the feed store came to the farm personally to apologize. So did Frank, my neighbor. So did half the people from church. I accepted their apologies. But things weren't the same. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. Brandon took a plea deal. 15 years in federal prison, no parole eligibility for at least 10. His real estate license was permanently revoked. His assets were seized to help compensate his victims. Marcus got 25 years for his crimes, including the attempted murder charge. His organized crime connections went down with him. The FBI said our case led to the arrest of over 30 people involved in various fraud and money laundering schemes. And Emma. That was the hardest part. She was offered a plea deal if she testified against Brandon and Marcus. 3 years in prison, with possibility of parole after 18 months. Her lawyers advised her to take it. She did. Before her sentencing, she asked to see me. I almost said no. But Harold convinced me to go. We met in a conference room at the county jail. She was wearing an orange jumpsuit. She'd lost weight. Her hair was pulled back. She looked young and scared. Dad, I know you probably hate me. I don't hate you, Emma. I'm just trying to understand how you could do this. I was angry. At you. At Mom for dying. At the farm for trapping me in that town. Brandon made me feel like I could escape. Like I could have a different life. He showed me pictures of houses, cars, vacations. He made me believe we'd be happy. And when did you realize it wasn't about happiness? She was quiet for a long time. When you signed that document at the engagement party, I watched him drug your drink. I watched him put the paper in front of you. I knew it was wrong. But I told myself you'd be fine, that you'd still have the farmhouse, that it wasn't really hurting you. I lied to myself. Your mother saw something in you when you were young. Something I didn't want to see. She tried to tell me. I didn't listen. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I know. I read her journals. The ones you showed the FBI. I know she thought I was broken. Not broken. Lost. And I should have helped you. I should have gotten you help. But I was so busy with the farm, so busy grieving your mother, that I didn't see what you needed. Dad, I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, I agreed. You don't. But I'm going to give it to you anyway. Eventually. Because you're still my daughter, and because your mother would want me to. She broke down then. Sobbed like a child. I didn't reach across the table to comfort her. I wasn't ready for that yet. But I stayed. I let her cry. And when she was done, I told her I'd visit her in prison. Not right away, but eventually. She was transferred to a federal facility in Missouri. I didn't visit for the first 6 months. I needed time to heal. But I wrote her letters. Short ones at first. Just updates about the farm. About the cattle. About the weather, she wrote back. Her letters were full of remorse, of therapy insights, of slow self-discovery. She was genuinely trying to change. I wanted to believe it. But trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. After 18 months, Emma was released on parole. She'd been a model prisoner, completed her GED, taken college courses, gone to therapy 3 times a week. The parole board believed she was rehabilitated. She moved to Topeka, hours away from the farm, got a job as a waitress, rented a small apartment, checked in with her parole officer weekly, and she called me once a week to talk. The conversations were awkward at first. Painful. What do you say to someone who betrayed you so completely? But slowly, over months, we found a rhythm. She told me about her job, her therapy, the books she was reading. I told her about the farm, about the new farmhands I'd hired, about the improvements I'd made. I didn't invite her to visit, not for the first year. But on her second birthday after prison, I called her and asked if she wanted to come for dinner. She arrived nervous, carrying flowers. We ate pot roast at the kitchen table, the same table where Marcus had held us at gunpoint 2 years earlier. We didn't talk about that. We talked about safe things. The weather, her job, the cattle. It wasn't forgiveness. Not complete forgiveness. But it was a start. Jessica became a real friend. She dedicated 3 years of her life to bringing Brandon down, and our case had finally done it. She visited the farm twice, once to celebrate the verdict, and once just to see the place that had started it all. She told me her father would have been proud, that knowing Brandon was in prison gave her closure. Agent Rodriguez stayed in touch too. She said our case had become a training example at the FBI Academy. How to build complex fraud cases, how to protect vulnerable victims. She credited me with being brave enough to wear the wire, even though I'd been terrified the entire time. Harold refused to accept payment for his legal work beyond his initial retainer. Said I'd given him the most interesting case of his career. We still meet for coffee every week, still sit on my porch and watch the sunset over the fields. The farm thrived again. I hired a young family, the Martins, to help run it. They had 2 kids, a boy and a girl, who reminded me of Emma at that age. Hopeful, full of life. I taught them to ride the tractor, showed them how to care for the cattle, gave them the same lessons my grandfather had given me. I set up a scholarship in Catherine's name, for young people in rural Kansas who wanted to study agriculture. First recipient was a girl from the next county, over who wanted to be a veterinarian. Catherine would have loved that. The farm itself became a symbol. The local newspaper did a follow-up story a year after the trial, called it a victory for small family farms against predatory developers. I didn't think of it that way. I just thought of it as home. But the biggest change was inside me. I'd learned something important through all of this. Love doesn't mean being blind. Trust has to be earned, not given automatically. Family bonds are precious, but they're not unbreakable. They require honesty, respect, and boundaries. I'd failed to see the warning signs in Emma because I hadn't wanted to see them. I'd loved her so much that I'd ignored the truth about who she was becoming. That was my mistake. Not the only one, but a big one. But I'd also learned that good people exist, that standing up for what's right matters, that evil often wears a familiar face and uses love as a weapon, and that when you're pushed to your absolute limit, you find out what you're really made of. I was made of the same stuff as my grandfather. Stubborn, principled, willing to fight for what mattered. The farm wasn't just land and cattle and wheat fields. It was legacy. It was honor. It was the values my grandfather had built with his own hands, and I'd protected it. Not perfectly, not without scars, but I'd protected it. On quiet evenings, I stood on my porch and looked out over the 200 acres, the cattle grazing peacefully, the wheat golden in the fading light, the old homestead my grandfather had built standing strong after 78 years. This was what I'd fought for. This was what I'd almost lost. And this was what I'd reclaimed. I was 64 years old. I had scars, emotional and physical. I had a daughter who'd betrayed me, but was trying to make amends. I had a farm that had almost been stolen, but was now secure. I was at peace. Before I went inside each night, I said a quiet thank you to my grandfather, to Catherine, to everyone who'd stood by me when things got dark. Harold, Jessica, Agent Rodriguez, even Raymond, Catherine's brother, who'd been watching my back the whole time. Because that phone call I'd made when I walked out of Emma's wedding reception? That 3-way call to Harold and Raymond? That had been the beginning of the end for Brandon. Raymond, a retired Texas Ranger, had already been investigating Brandon based on my suspicions. He'd connected me with Agent Rodriguez weeks before the wedding. We'd anticipated Brandon would make a move. We just hadn't known exactly when or how. When Brandon saw Raymond at the wedding, standing in plain clothes at the back of the reception hall, he'd gone hysterical, because he'd recognized him. And he'd known, in that moment, that law enforcement was involved, that his perfect plan was falling apart. That moment of panic had been the first crack. And eventually, that crack had brought the whole scheme crashing down. I set up my will carefully with Harold. When I died, the farm wouldn't go to Emma. Instead, it would go to a conservation trust. The land would remain agricultural forever. No development. No highways. No shopping centers. Just cattle and wheat and the wide Kansas sky. The way my grandfather had intended. Emma knew about this decision. I'd told her during one of our careful, guarded conversations. She'd cried but said she understood. Said she didn't deserve it anyway. Maybe someday I'd change my mind. Maybe not. But for now, this felt right. Life has a way of testing you in ways you never expect. Sometimes the people closest to you hurt you the deepest. Sometimes you discover strength you didn't know you had. Sometimes justice prevails, even when it seems impossible. I'd been tested. I'd been hurt. I'd been pushed to the edge of losing everything that mattered. But I'd stood firm. I'd fought back. And I'd won. Not because I was special. Not because I was smarter than Brandon or tougher than Marcus. But because I refused to surrender. Because I believed that right mattered more than might. Because I'd made promises to my grandfather, to my wife, to myself, and I'd kept them. The farm stood. The legacy continued. Justice was served. That's all any man can really ask for. As I locked the door each night and looked out at the fields one last time, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Real peace. The kind that comes from knowing you did the right thing, even when it was hard, even when it cost you everything. My grandfather built this place with sweat and faith and stubborn determination. My father maintained it through good years and bad. I'd nearly lost it to greed and betrayal, but it was still here, still standing, still home, and that made all the pain worth it. So let me ask you something. If you were in my position, facing the loss of everything you'd worked for, everything your family had built, would you have fought or would you have walked away? Have you ever had to stand up to someone you loved, knowing it might cost you that relationship forever? What would you sacrifice to protect your legacy? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about what really matters in life, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's fighting their own battles, someone who needs to know that standing up for what's right is always worth it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it gave you something to think about, maybe even something to hold on to when your own trials come. Remember, the things worth having are worth fighting for. Always.